Right, g'day people. Today we find ourselves in Sunshine Bay, which is about 4 hours south of Sydney, on the outskirts of Bateman's Bay. And I'm standing at the start of where a pretty good quality shared path begins, and it stops at this roundabout. Now I could keep going up the hill there, but it turns into a footpath rather than a shared path. So anyway, let's just have a look at this path and what the quality of it's like all the way into town while I squint into the sun. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because no matter where I go, whether it's Perth or Sydney or down here, we see the same build, design, construction problems everywhere. It's just systemic that all these kind of these paths generally show the same problems, and that is there's a lack of network connectivity, there's poor construction, and where there is good construction, it's fairly limited. Like, it only goes to short sections, and then you end up in an absolute goat track. And that's certainly what we're going to see today, that there's some really good sections of path, and this is one of them. It's probably about 30 years old. That's about how old the suburb is. And I presume this was laid down, when the suburb was built. And I don't know why it doesn't keep going up that hill there, because that would have been a really good extension, about another K and a half down to Surf Beach, but for whatever reason it didn't go ahead. Oh, and what do you think of my lovely ear things? My usual cycling companion has been complaining that his ears are getting sore, and we've tried a variety of solutions and nothing's worked, so I thought I'd give these things a go. It's just a bit of fabric from Spotlight, which I've stapled onto the straps, and I've got to say it eliminates almost all wind noise. It's really quite bizarre, and yeah, I know they look a bit weird. They kind of look like a 19th century English something or other, but what the hell, they work, even if they are even if they are just the weirdest looking things. Anyway, so we've got this nice concrete path, gets fairly well used, and just a couple of minutes on the demographics of Bateman's Bay. Now obviously it's a much older demographic. There's a lot of retired people down here, and funnily enough there's a lot of bicycle usage, mainly e-bikes. And the local butcher has gotten used to me dropping in now on the bike to buy some meat, and he joked the other day that I was on an old-fashioned bike, and I was looking out the window at my bike frame thinking, what the hell is he talking about? And he said jokingly, oh, it doesn't have a motor, it's very old-fashioned. It's like, okay, I get your point. It is very hilly down here. This is one of the few flat sections from here into town. It's about 6 k's. Everywhere else it's just hills, 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 and boy is it doing wonderful things for my fitness, but it kind of restricts your mobility because the hills do get a bit much after a while. Anyway, there's a lot of e-bike usage. You get a lot of grey nomads in camper vans and caravans, and often they'll have 1 or 2 bikes on the back, and that's how they get around. They'll pull up at a camping spot and then use the bikes to go into town or whatever, if it's only a K or 2, or just get around in general. And yesterday I even saw someone in a wheelchair down the beach, and they'd hooked up the front of an e-bike, so they'd built themselves an e-tricycle out of their wheelchair, which was a really interesting thing. And I guess when they get to the shops or whatever, they can just park the electric front wheel essentially out the front, the shops, and then just use the wheelchair around the shopping centre. Well, I don't know, you know what I mean. Anyway, that's the end of the path, and what I'm going to have to do in a sec is put the camera down, because it's going to be too dangerous to keep filming, because we're going to be on road and on goat track, and you'll see what I mean. So let me stop and put this thing down, and I'll have to do some commentary from my desk afterwards. Well, we've seen the good track. Let's see what happens after that. And I'd just like to point out that on my left here is a primary school, and there's quite a few kids that ride to school. The bike racks out the front of this are quite well populated most days. But for some strange reason, there's no bike path along here. All they've come up with is this painted bike lane here, which isn't too bad until it comes up to this bridge when it gets very, very, very narrow. And you've got to peel off and, well, try and get across this bridge without getting clobbered. That's the first time I've actually ridden across there on the road. Most of the time what I do is ride on this path, which is very narrow. In fact, so narrow, if you're pushing a pram along here, your wheels would almost be hanging off the sides. And check out the quality of the potholes as we cross that driveway. Yeah, not the best, but, well, that's what I meant about there being missing links. Now, along here is a bit like Lyons Road West, in that you often have cars parked in this, what's nominally a bike lane. And it was not too bad today, just the one car. Sometimes you got to go around half a dozen going along here. The road surface is terrible. It's all rough asphalt that's just dead as. And the thing that worries me is coming over this hill here, you often have cars just driving in the bike lane as they cut these corners, and it's much, much worse going uphill than downhill. And I've almost been clobbered once by someone coming out of their driveway. And it doesn't help, of course, that council at the moment has actually parked a sign half in the bike lane at the moment. Now watch this bike lane as we go up the hill. It's just like, whoop, where's my lane gone? All I've got is just this tiny little strip of asphalt between the white line and the rail, and there's not much of it. And that lane is absolutely full of leaf litter and sticks and twigs and all sorts of other rubbish. So yeah, not too bad on a mountain bike, but on a road bike you really don't have much room to play with. Now what I find interesting is as you come up here, you'll notice that, well, what I noticed is that most of the leaf litter has been scrubbed out of the lane by drivers cutting the corner there and just going full on into what's nominally a bike lane. Not the best. Now that's another missing link there, is where I just did that little dodge 'em at the traffic lights, because how are you supposed to get around that corner? Well, yeah, so they've got a rough path here, turns into a good path, but there's a couple of sections where there's just nothing in between. I just want to show you this section at the traffic lights one more time, because it's no right turn at those lights. So how's a cyclist supposed to go from on the road onto the high quality path that exists just beyond there? And the answer is, the only way I've found it is to duck up onto the footpath and then come into this car park and then do a left-hand turn onto the path. So it's another one of these missing links. They've got a really nice path here which runs all the way into town, and it's pretty high quality apart from just one little short section. But, you know, what about the traffic lights? What are you supposed to do there? Going back the other way is not too bad, because you can go into the car park, wait at the traffic lights, turn left, go up the hill, yeah, it's all good. But coming down the hill, they don't seem to have thought about how you join this path. Now, there are a couple of options, but they do involve either kind of going around the block or continuing on along a busy two-lane road and turning across traffic into this car park here, which is not a really good option given the way drivers go flying around the place. So it's interesting, it's been like that possibly for decades, and yet they haven't come up with a solution. So I just find that really quite bizarre. Anyway, I hope you might have got something out of this. You know, it just shows you can have good paths that are just messed up by bits that are missing, and those missing links really need to be filled in to make the whole lot work much better.